Hello and welcome everyone to Natural Grocer's Nutrition Education presentation. Today we are pleased to introduce Dr. Christopher Grier, Doctor of Chiropractic with Wellness Bright Futures Chiropractic. Welcome, Dr. Grier.
All right. Thanks for having me again. This was so much fun. We had a ton of good feedback from December's stress workshop. I'm excited to be back presenting with Natural Grocers on this mission towards helping as many people as possible thrive with their health so they can flourish in their life. All right, again, like the introduction said, I'm Dr. Chris Grier with Bright Futures Chiropractic. I am a chiropractor with a wellness focus right here in Kelowna, Iowa, right around the Iowa City, Iowa area. And our practice is specifically designed to help people improve health. Now, that might seem silly, like, well, isn't that what healthcare is all about? And man, do I wish. I wish that's what healthcare was all about. But all too often, healthcare is about helping people not have symptoms anymore. Right? And it's great when people don't have symptoms anymore. However, it's not the whole game. That doesn't mean people are getting healthier. Our office is specifically designed to help people improve their health. So if thriving, if flourishing is exactly what you want for you and your family, seek us out. Seek out another chiropractor with a similar mindset in an area where you are. Reach out to me. I can help you do that if you're not near Iowa City, Iowa. So, without further ado, we get to talk about my favorite health fundamental, sleep. Now, in order to introduce this, I need to let y'all know this is kind of what people end up feeling like, right? How many of you feel like this on a day-to-day basis? Or at least more often than you feel like you ought to. Like your batteries are totally drained, like you get to the end of the day and you barely made it to the end of the day, and it's like everything you can do to get a little something to eat and then hit the bed, right? And then you fall asleep immediately, which lots of times people say, oh no, I sleep just fine as soon as my head hits the pillow. We're going to learn that is not actually a sign of you being well rested. But this is how many Americans, this is how many people in Western society in general feel at the end of the day. We feel completely wiped out, and frankly, lots of us feel almost this way or completely this way at the beginning of the day as well. Now we'll talk about our 5 health fundamentals, but first I want you to meet Will. So Will is my son. Here he is back when he was, I don't know, 3, 2 maybe, and we were going to one of our favorite concerts. We love this band called the Steel Wheels. Check them out. I'll give them a shout out. But we love the Steel Wheels, and this is Will showing up for a Steel Wheels concert, ready to rock in his fedora, the whole thing. And here he is a little more recently. This is maybe a year and a half ago after he caught his biggest trout of his life. Up till that point, he will remind me as soon as this airs that he's caught larger now. And that I should have put those pictures on, but I didn't. Anyway, this relates to sleep because when he was 10 weeks old, my wife and I and him took our first big family road trip. We went up to a wedding in Minnesota. And we came back, and on our way back, we have family, most of the way back, but we stopped about an hour and a half from home, had dinner, regrouped, and then we were heading out on our final journey home. About halfway home, 45 minutes from home, he had been screaming the entire way. We had stopped multiple times. My wife had tried to breastfeed him. That always had worked in the previous 10 weeks. It wasn't working this time. He'd calm down. We put him back in the car seat and he would scream. We had no idea what was going on. So finally we pull over one more time and my wife says, hey, have you checked him? That means, I'm a chiropractor. Have I checked him for subluxation? Have I checked his spine? And I was like, oh, geez, no, I haven't. So I check him. I find a subluxation up in his neck. I adjust him. Boom, he's down. 45 minutes drive home, out like a light. We get home, carry him into his bed, out like a light. Sleeps the rest of the night. So that was one of the first real experiences of the immediacy of what happens when your spine and your nervous system aren't working well and how that impacts sleep. Now, I'll talk more about that, and I know that this is a broader audience. Oftentimes people are drawn to these workshops because they're interested in overall health in general, and they're interested maybe in the nutritional approach, which we're going to bring that as well. But today I'm bringing a complete lifestyle approach, and sleep, I feel, is one of the most important things we could all improve. After all, parents know how important sleep is, right? Their kids start going sideways and they start screaming and they start being, all wonky with things. It's like, what do they need to do? Sleep. It's one of the first things we think about, right? And it's one of the first things we should think about as adults, but we don't. Oh no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I fall asleep like that when I hit the pillow, and I wake up with my alarm, and then I'm ready to go. Sleep isn't an issue for me. Well, I will say that it most likely is. In fact, I'm going to read to you from Matthew Walker's book. He wrote a fantastic book, which if you're really looking to dig into this, check out the book, Why We Sleep, by Dr. Matthew Walker. He points out, he, by the way, is the director of the Sleep and Neuroimaging Lab at the University of California, Berkeley. And what he identified is that people think they're sleeping fine, but really what has happened is a process called baseline resetting. So bear with me for a moment because I can't say it better than him. He says, quote, "A major problem is baseline resetting. With chronic sleep restriction over months or years, an individual will actually acclimate to their impaired performance, lower alertness, and reduced energy levels. That low-level exhaustion becomes their accepted norm or baseline. Individuals fail to recognize how their perennial state of sleep efficiency has come to compromise their mental aptitude and physical vitality, including the slow accumulation of ill health." Now here we go. "A link between the former and the latter is rarely made in their mind, but based on epidemiological studies of average sleep time, millions of individuals unwittingly spend years of their life in suboptimal state of psychological and physiological functioning, never maximizing their potential of mind or body due to their blind persistence in sleeping too little." Now, if all we needed to do was sleep more, that's what I would tell you right here. I'd say, okay, so go, start sleeping more, right? But sleep is a very habitual thing, and we have to really dig deeper to figure out how to do that. And in order to be motivated on the how, we have to understand the why. So check this out. Dr. Walker says the silent sleep loss epidemic, check this out. I'm going to start it over. The silent sleep loss epidemic is the greatest public health challenge we face in the 21st century. Wow. If we wish to avoid the suffocating effects of sleep neglect, the premature death it inflicts, and the sickening health it invites, a radical shift in our personal, cultural, professional, and societal appreciation of sleep must occur. So hang in here with me for the next half an hour because that's what we're going to do. We are going to bring out the importance, personally, culturally, professionally, societally. We must appreciate how important this is. So he points out that, by the way, there has been an amazing breakthrough in medical research. Scientists have discovered a revolutionary new treatment that makes you live longer. It enhances your memory and makes you more creative. It makes you look more attractive. It keeps you slim and lowers food cravings. It protects you from cancer and dementia. It wards off colds and the flu and any other viruses that might come along, by the way. It lowers your risk of heart attacks and strokes, not to mention diabetes. You'll even feel happier, less depressed, less anxious. Are you interested? The elixir, of course, isn't some new pharmaceutical. It's not some new shot that you can get that's just now out on the market. What is it? It is sleep. So we are going to dig into that because we've got an understanding now of sleep that brings out the idea that it's not that we have to look for what sleep is good for. It's that it would be more useful to look for what sleep isn't good for because science has not found that. Every physiologic function that goes on in our body is better with sleep. Okay? So here we go. Let's dig in to what that looks like. All right. Poor sleep can be a body signal. And I do this entire workshop series called Body Signals Workshop Program. And most of the time, what we're thinking about in our culture are our symptoms. And our symptoms represent the proverbial tip of the iceberg. And then there's everything below it. Symptoms are one thing, And if we want to get rid of those, there's lots of pharmaceuticals that get rid of symptoms. That's pretty much what they're designed for most of the time. But if we want to thrive, we have to deal with the rest of the iceberg. The symptoms are our body signals. We need to learn how to speak body language. All right. Here's the simplicity of thriving. We live on a continuum from wellness to illness, and each of us is on this continuum somewhere. It's the things that we do in our lifestyle, physically, chemically, emotionally, that lead us either away from better health or towards better health. And the simple test is this, whatever it is. So the simple test is something that came to me as I was searching for a way that we could create an easy way for us to think about what we're doing so that we can consciously choose things that lead us in the direction we want to go. Because by the way, do you want your family to move that way on this continuum or this way? Silly question, right? Everybody, 100% of people choose this, especially people who seek out workshops like this. Everybody wants this. And most of the time we're frustrated because we're not fully getting there. Well, it's the things that we do in our lifestyle, physically, chemically, emotionally, that lead us one way or the other. And any choice that we have in front of us, what it is that we're going to eat, how we're going to move, if we're going to react in this way or that to the situation that we're in, whatever it is, we can ask ourselves this. Will this make me healthier? Whatever the choice is. Here it is in front of you. Ask yourself, will this make me healthier? And what percent of the time do you think you'll know the answer? I would guess you'll know it most of the time. Most of the time. So that's where we build the Thrive formula from. This idea that we can make choices, and those choices are physical, chemical, and emotional choices. We break this down, as I mentioned earlier, into 5 fundamentals. We'll get there in a second. But the 3 major groups are physical, chemical, and emotional. And all of those things rest on this platform called the nervous system. Now, most people, if quizzed, would be able to come up with what the nervous system is. It's the brain, it's the spinal cord, and it's all the nerves that come out from there. And that's pretty much the general knowledge of the nervous system. What we don't know, what we don't appreciate, is the fact that those nerves control and regulate every function of the body. Every cell in our body is either directly or indirectly controlled by the effect of the nervous system. So we have to have a healthy functioning nervous system so that the choices we make, if they're beneficial, provide us the biggest gain. And if those choices aren't beneficial, they have the smallest detriment. Okay? First part of the Thrive formula is a healthy functioning nervous system. Good chiropractic care done in a wellness model where the goal is helping a person thrive, that's what helps deliver a healthy functioning nervous system. Not to get into it, but it's real simple. Where do you go to make sure your teeth are doing well, even if they're not symptomatic? You go to the dentist, right? Where do you go to make sure your nervous system is doing well, even if you're not symptomatic, or if you are? The chiropractor. That's the idea. But make sure that you call up, make sure that you know the purpose of that chiropractic office. And I would ask them that, hey, what's the purpose of your office? You know, and if the person on the phone can't be like, oh yeah, well, our purpose is to help people get healthier, or to help people thrive, help people work towards flourishing, maybe it's not the right office for you. But do that consultation first, and then get yourself some good chiropractic care, because the rest of it is up to you. We at our office certainly counsel on this, but once we have a person know that they have a healthy functioning nervous system, then we work to help them make choices that give the body everything it needs, physically, chemically, and emotionally. And then we need to limit or eliminate all the things it doesn't need, physically, chemically, and emotionally. And then we have to do that over time. Okay? Time is the factor that most people get frustrated with. We acknowledge the fact that, oh yeah, my health has gone downhill for maybe the past 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, maybe it's 30 years. I don't know. It's been a while. My health hasn't been exactly what I want it to be for a while. And I want it back now, right? That doesn't happen. We have to do things over time. Allow this to work, because the body heals over time. It's one of the classic chiropractic principles, is that there is no process that does not require time. Okay? Everything requires time. And when we do all that right, then we get to thriving. All right, let's dig in. So, how do you know if your nervous system's healthy? Like I mentioned, you have to get it checked. You go to the dentist to make sure that your teeth are healthy, with whether they're symptomatic or not. If you're symptomatic or not, to get your nervous system checked, you go to a chiropractor. So you get checked by a chiropractor. They need to do testing, right, to make sure they know where you're at. They need to do a consultation to see what your body's been through, what it's going through now, what your goals are, and then they do an examination. Ideally, ours involves 5 objective criteria. Instrumentation, so that we can really see how that nervous system is working. Motion palpation, where we're seeing how the spine moves. Static palpation, where we're seeing what position it's in. We're going to check posture to see how the body has been molded over time. And I tell you, standard American posture is really bad on all aspects of health, including your sleep. And then in our office, we oftentimes are evaluating with x-ray to make sure that we're seeing how much damage there's been to the spine, if any, and how long it's been there. All right, so are you stressed? This is a general question, hopefully not right now during this workshop. Hopefully you're quite enjoying it, but are you stressed? Now, most of the time we think about stress in the psychological way, but I say stress is because we live unnaturally. And check this out. Is this a scene that looks familiar to you? You know, whatever it's called, whether you're checking, beneficial things or whether you're doom scrolling, whatever it's being called nowadays. This is oftentimes how we begin and end our day, with immediate input from the outer world. That is unnaturally stressful from a psychological standpoint. It's even unnaturally stressful from a physical standpoint, because that light that's being emitted right into those eyes, that will, if it's the end of the day, that will delay your melatonin release and cause major problems. Stress, however, comes in 3 different dimensions: thoughts, toxins, and trauma. So this is the emotional component, this is the biochemical component, and this is the physical component. And when we think about, are we living life in a way that's congruent with what human beings were designed to, we have to think about all these things. Now, human beings, of course, were not designed in 21st century Western culture, right? We just weren't. And so the way that we think, the things that we get exposed to, and the ways that we use our body are 180 degrees different from what we were designed for. That's the unnaturally stressful world that I talk about. And that unnaturally stressful world has really messed up sleep, by the way. What it also does, or one of the reasons it does that, is because it creates this condition. This is a condition that chiropractors look for. This is what we are looking for to see if the body is not appropriately communicating with the brain. So again, you've got your brain, you've got your spinal cord, and all of the nerves in the body send information into that spinal cord and up into the brain. The brain then gets to figure out whether things are in balance or whether they're not. And if they're not working appropriately, it has to send change orders back down so that the body sorts itself out. That flow of communication allows us to heal. It allows us to grow appropriately. If that flow is interfered with, then we move away from health. And that's what we call subluxation. Subluxation involves joint misalignment, soft tissue damage, inflammation, nerve irritation, muscle spasm, and joint fixation. And all of that leads to the stress response. Now, the stress response is a psychological, hormonal effect that has global implications. And here they are. I'm not going through them all, but as you can see, when you're in the stress response, it affects all of the major functions of the body, and it does it appropriately if you're in a situation where you have to run away from the mountain lion that just jumped out at you, right? However, if the situation is something that is chronic and it sticks around, a bad job, a bad relationship, the fact that we all sit way more than we're supposed to, whatever it is, when we're subluxated, this stress response happens chronically. And what do you think that does to sleep? Not good things, because when your body is set up to run away from the mountain lion, it does not want to sleep. Remember the Thrive formula? This is how we get it back. This is how we get it back, and there's really important steps to making sure your nervous system stays healthy, and then learning to give the body everything it needs is key, and that's why you're here. That's what we get to dig into. The 5 fundamentals that I referred to in those 3 physical, chemical, and emotional dimensions are this, and this is how I always write them out. Sleep. Sleep is my number 1, and it's the one that I like to teach about most because I've learned the most about it for my own health, because sleep for me is the thing that makes me effectively bulletproof. Maybe it's because I've got the other ones dialed in pretty well, especially how to move, how to eat. I'm going to be doing a workshop in a couple of months on how to breathe, and then a couple months or a month after that, how to focus. Those are our 5 fundamentals. And sleep I put at the base of this because I think, and so does Matthew Walker and the sleep researchers, I think that it's one of the most underrated and one of the ones we have the biggest problem with. Yep, sleep. All right, so let's dig into key sleep thieves. These are the things that keep our battery low, unfortunately. The key sleep thieves. I'll break them down into the physical, chemical, and psycho-emotional aspects here. Physical life. Having a sedentary lifestyle. I'm going to get into these more, by the way. Sedentary lifestyle, poor bedroom environment, and spinal subluxation. Sedentary lifestyle. Did you know that 80+% of the American public sits 8 or more hours a day? And that research has shown that sitting 8 or more hours a day is as detrimental to your health as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. Yikes. A sedentary lifestyle is a thief of sleep because it doesn't work your body enough to give your body the biochemical cues that it's time to sleep. Poor bedroom environment. This is another physical thing. Oftentimes our bedrooms are too warm and too bright. So, in order to dial that in, have a cooler bedroom environment. A couple degrees cooler than you think is comfortable, by the way. The research says this is in the 60s. You know, ideally 67 or below actually is the ideal temperature. And then dark. Dark like cave dark, like you put your hand in front of your face and you can't see it. That's how dark we need it for optimal sleep. And then spinal subluxation. Like I just mentioned, when we have subluxation, we also have the stress response going on. And when the stress response is there, our body is not primed for excellent sleep. Biochemically, we've got nicotine, we've got our curfews that I'll talk about, and then we've got meal timing. Nicotine is one that is still a pretty big factor in Western culture, even though everybody knows that smoking and chewing tobacco, it's not good for you, right? But still a lot of people do it. And nicotine is a stimulant. And so when we are utilizing stimulants, that works directly against our sleep mechanism. Caffeine and alcohol. Now, most people would be like, yeah, well, of course, caffeine is a problem. But others would also say, or maybe even the same people would say, but alcohol really helps me get to sleep. A glass of wine at night makes me fall right asleep, you know, whatever it might be. And while I'm not against either of these things completely, they do affect sleep if you have them too close to your bedtime. So I say make sure that you're setting your curfews. Caffeine, alcohol before 2 p.m. Sometimes people who are slower metabolizers of either of these things need to go even earlier with that. But make sure you're cutting it off 2 p.m. or earlier. And then meal timing. So when we eat and what we eat makes a big difference with how ready our body is to sleep. Our body has to put a ton of energy into digestion. And when our body is digesting, that requires a lot of physiologic effort. We don't want to be going through that physiologic effort at the same time that we're trying to go through sleep. Because sleep is not something that's just passive and we're just all chilled out and nothing's happening in the body. It is a very active process where our body gets busy doing the repair necessary to help us move through, grow from what we just went through today and get ready for tomorrow. And in our brain, we get a complete cleansing of our brain, and we're moving the information that we learned today into long-term memory, and then we're solidifying our experiences in our longer term memory. All of that happens while we sleep. So we need energy for that stuff. And with meal timing, if we eat too close to bedtime, it throws all that off. What's the ideal? Ideally, 3 or 4 hours before bed, you're done eating, or at least you're done having a major meal. Sometimes a light snack can be can be beneficial towards the end of the day. But if we're having a large meal where we're really full and you're having to work on that, make sure that that gets done well before bedtime. And then the psycho-emotional component. One of the biggest factors, and this is one that I get the most pushback or the most discomfort with in my practice, is screens. What screens am I talking about? Well, the one you're watching me on, unfortunately, falls into that. Anything that emits light into your face. So that's your TV, that's your computer screen, that's your tablet, that's your phone. And so many Americans are now habituated into doing all of those things toward the end of the day, and then spending the last few moments of our day making sure that we've checked our latest notifications. Not only does this blow our brain up with whatever it is that we're reading, but it also literally delays our melatonin release by hours. In the book, In Why We Sleep, they talk about a research study that was done where people read either from paper or from an iPad, the same passage, and the people who read from an iPad had a 3-hour delay in their melatonin release. Melatonin is a hormone in our body which signals that it's time for sleep. It doesn't initiate sleep, it signals that it's time for sleep. And that melatonin release, if it's pushed back, unfortunately, our body's like, look, it's not time to sleep. What's going on? Like, what do we have to do? So that's not a good thing. It definitely decreases our sleep quality. And even if you're a person who can do the screen thing and then feel like you fall right asleep, you're not going to be having the quality of sleep necessary. And I'll talk about quality of sleep in a moment. Then, okay, so that's screens. Then we also have attention residue. And this comes from emotional stress, which I'll have a strategy against this or to combat this in a moment. But attention residue is a really important thing where the stuff that is unfinished in our life keeps bouncing around in our head. Does this sound familiar? It does for me too. It's something that I've had to work on significantly, because whether we know it or not, we are kicking around anything that's unfinished in our brain that we haven't given it the signal that we know when we're going to get to it again. We haven't told our brain that, so our brain doesn't want us to forget, and it keeps it rolling. This rumination is not good for our sleep initiation. It's not good for good quality sleep while we're asleep, and it leaves us worn out in the mornings as well. And inconsistent routine is a big psycho-emotional thief of health. What I mean by that is sometimes we're going to bed at midnight, sometimes we're going to bed at 10, sometimes we're waking up at 5:30, sometimes it's 9, whatever it might be, those routines aren't consistent. So one of the best strategies, and frankly one of the simplest strategies, is to go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time. Train your body that is how it happens, regardless of what's up. If there's a day here and a day there where that can change, so be it. But the habit is you go to bed at the same time, you wake up at the same time. Now let's dig into the things that help health. Key lifestyle factors for fantastic sleep. So, physical things, making sure that spine and that nervous system health are top notch. This is where having a good chiropractor on your healthcare team as a strategy for excellent health is key. Vigorous activity. We need to exercise to be fit, not just exercise to, hey, I got my 30 minutes of walking in today, I must be fine. No, we need to exercise to be fit. In fact, what we need to aim for is making sure that our waist to height ratio is 0.5 or better. Now, I know I just threw out like a stat on there, and maybe you're scrambling that down, but whatever it is. So for instance, I'm 6 feet tall, that's 72 inches. that means that my waist could be 36 inches and I would fit in that 0.5 waist to height ratio. That's what we want. We want that better than that or up to that. So exercise to be fit, that is one of the key metrics for knowing that you're getting there as far as the overall population research shows. Exercise to be fit and do it vigorously. What vigorous exercise means is that on most days of the week, 4, 5, 6 days out of the week, we need to exercise so that our heart's pumping, so that our blood is flowing, our lungs are really pushing. We need that vigorous work so that it can signal our body that it needs that good deep sleep. And physically making sure you have a proper bed and a proper pillow. Again, this can fit into that thing where we got to have it does fit into our thing where we have to have our environment right for our bedroom. Getting that proper bed, that proper pillow, this is a bigger discussion. I get a lot of these questions like what pillow do you use, what bed do you use, all of that, and I have my distinct opinions on those things. I'll let you work with your health professional on that, but just know that there are very beneficial ones and there are ones that just aren't, and sleep is important enough for you to figure it out. Like, get with an expert and figure this out. All right, biochemically. Now, here's where we're digging into what foods should I eat, what foods could I eat if I want to have as best health and as best a sleep as possible. This is going to be a very familiar thing. Eat your greens and get your healthy fat. Now, greens come in lots of different forms, and you can get them right there at Natural Grocers. You can get them at the store. You can, or you can grow them yourself. You can grow sprouts on your counter. Get those greens in there. Kale, spinach, vibrantly colored lettuce salads, mustard greens, sprouts, like I mentioned, all of that, and healthy fat. What's healthy fat? Well, if it's from a vegetable source, I say there are really three, with another addition, but three main ones that I encourage everybody to have and use, and it pretty much covers all culinary needs. Coconut oil, avocado oil, and olive oil. I personally don't heat olive oil. I use that on for toppings and for dressings. I'm fine with heating avocado oil, and coconut oil you can also use with heat in many different applications. Those three. Another really healthful oil is macadamia nut oil. A little trickier to find, a little higher on the price point. So those are the oils that I consider in the healthy fats. And then the other healthy fats come from well-raised animal products. If you're getting well-raised animal products, meaning pastured poultry, beef, lamb, pork, the eggs from pastured chickens, wild-caught fish, those things are well-raised animal products, and the fat that's in those is good for you. All right? Now you might be saying, well, I heard all this stuff about saturated fat, and saturated fat isn't good for you. Well, guess what? That stuff is antiquated. That data is old. It's from the 60s and 70s, and since then we figured out that, telling people to eat a bunch of carbohydrates and stay away from fat did not work. In fact, it led to epidemic amounts of diabetes and cardiovascular disease, and worse, sleep, by the way. Supplementing. We need to make sure we supplement with vitamin D and omega-3s. These two in particular can help trigger the appropriate sleep response with us. Get those good sources of vitamin D and omega-3. Check with your experts on what good sources are before you go out and buy the supplements. And then psycho-emotionally, here are our strategies for dialing in those habits so that we don't have those thieves that I mentioned on the previous slide. Psycho-emotionally, we have to have our digital sunset. This means you draw a line at a certain point in the day and you say, this is the time of day where I'm not doing any more screens. None. I've checked my last notification. I've turned my phone into airplane mode. I know, I think I just heard a gasp through the internet. Right? Do it. Please. Turn all that stuff off. The TV's off, the screen's off, no more tablet, whatever. Make it hard to access those things. Put them in places that you would have to put effort into getting them. That's what you need to do for digital sunset. For me, it's 8 o'clock. I need actually to move it to 7:30. I go to bed at 8:45. 45 minutes ahead is really not enough time for me. I need to move it to 7:30. So here we are. It's a new year. I'm doing it. And we need to work on our AM and PM bookends. What I mean by this, there's a strategy out there that I think is brilliant, which identifies the fact that we have control over the end of our night and we have control over the very beginning of our day. Those two times are the times that we need to completely nail. Like, we have to do those two parts of the day great, because who knows what else is happening the rest of the day. So in a PM bookend, which includes digital sunset, it also needs to include shutdown complete. And shutdown complete is where we're going to take care of that residual attention that I mentioned before. Shutdown complete is where, whether you're at work or at home, wherever you are, that the main part of your day, the responsibility part of your day is over. You get to organize everything, get it ready for tomorrow, and then you will say shutdown complete. So you'll look at your list of things to do, all the stuff that you did get done in the day and all that stuff that you didn't get done in the day. And then you will identify what that stuff you didn't get done when you're going to do it. Okay, yep, I'm doing that tomorrow, mark that down. That, I won't get to that till Friday. Okay, I'm going to mark that down. Whatever it is, really dial those things in, identify when they are, leave them on your desk, leave them somewhere that's not in the like living part of your home, wherever you are, wherever you're doing the rest of the evening. Put those things away and then honestly say, literally say, shutdown complete. Shutdown complete. And then go spend time doing what you love to do, whether that's with your family or doing art or music or reading or, cooking a great meal, whatever it is that you love to do. Then you've done your shutdown complete, and that residual attention isn't going to rattle around and bother that. And then we need to breathe and we need to oscillate. Breathing is a big, big, big problem. It's almost as big a problem as sleep. I'll be talking about that in a couple of months in a workshop. And it's almost as big a problem in the fact that most of us think we're doing fine with it, and we're not, okay? Here's the only thing I'm saying about breathing right now, is that our daily posture usually inhibits our breathing. So good human posture is our head above our shoulders, our shoulder above our hips above our ankles. That's good human posture. The sternum stays high, the chin stays tucked, and that opens up our lungs so that we can breathe appropriately. In through the nose, out through the nose or mouth, but in through the nose for sure. I like both in and out through the nose. That's how we need to breathe. Breathing starts with our posture. Really work on that posture. What I just said is not enough for you to nail it. Check out the resources from Foundation Training and check with your chiropractor about what he or she would recommend on how to enhance your posture. And then we need to do a process called oscillating. This is turning the switch off when it can go off and turning it back on when it needs to go on. So throughout the day, we have periods in the day where we have transition. And oftentimes if we have a break, what we do is we fill it with something else. We don't actually take a break. It's like, oh, good, that's done. Now I'm going to go check my email. I'm going to see what notifications are on my phone. I'm going to check in on Facebook, or I'm going to, whatever it might be. We blow up our brain with something else for 5 or 10 minutes, thinking that it's a break, and then we dive back into work or whatever responsibility we're in. That's not a break. That's keeping your energy level at this heightened state of arousal. We need to be up there for when we're on, focusing on what we need to focus on, and then we need to drop it off. We need to sit back. We need to say, all right, there we go. What I do at work, I look out the window, I got a beautiful view. I look at the clouds, I look at the trees. I breathe, make sure I'm calming my body down. And then when it's time to go back into it, flip that switch back on and you're back at it. Those micro breaks, those micro rests during the day, do 5 or 10 of those during the day, and your sleep is going to be way better at night, instead of your body being jacked up all day long and then boof, expecting it to sleep. Naps also fit into that. And I haven't talked about naps, but human beings are designed to nap. We're designed to get a big chunk of sleep at night, and we're designed to get a little chunk of sleep in the middle of the day. Those naps can be really important, and it's one of the things that I'm working on in 2021, my napping. All right, let's expand those lifestyle hacks. Measuring sleep quality, I think, is one of the best things that a person can do. I use this little device on my hand here. That's my Oura Ring, O-U-R-A. I have no affiliation with them, but this thing has been working great for me for a year and a half or so. This tells me the quality of my sleep. It also keeps me real on when I'm going to sleep and when I'm waking up, and it has really helped me dial in my sleep habits. So measure that sleep quality, whether it's with an Oura Ring or a Fitbit or your whatever it is. Measure that quality. Bookend your days. I've talked about the AM PM bookends. Make sure you're doing that. Use the shutdown complete, the digital sunset, and if needed, set yourself a bedtime alarm. Most people set up a wake-up alarm, but it's a bedtime alarm that most of us need. Like, hey, time to go to bed. Stop what you're doing. Yes, I know you've got 3 or 4 other things that you could do, but please stop that. It's time to go to bed. And then in the morning, work on that routine too. Before inputs, get in your morning focus, your breathing, get some exercise in if that's a good time for you. Do your deep work before your inputs, right? No internet, no checking in with the rest of the world before you've done something useful with your day. That will help your sleep at night. Again, exercise to be fit. I mentioned that waist to height ratio of 0.5. Dig into that in your bedroom environment. Make sure it's dark. Make sure you don't have a phone in there. Definitely don't have a TV in there. And make sure that it's not messy, because mess is another form of residual attention, where your brain wants everything organized. Your brain wants that stuff sorted where it's supposed to be. And if it's a mess, it tries to figure that out, and it doesn't let you get into that nice state of sleep as it should. Remember the Thrive formula. We got to have that healthy functioning nervous system. Give the body everything it needs, which hopefully you've learned more about that today. Limit and eliminate the things it doesn't need, which hopefully you've learned about that in relation to sleep too. And do all of this over time, and that's going to lead us to thriving. That's going to lead us to having this battery fully charged as we head into the day, and not completely and utterly depleted at the end of the day. It's going to help us not only feel better and function better, but it's going to help our sleep, which, as I mentioned in what Dr. Walker said in the book, things like infection, other immune system issues are worse off if you don't get good sleep, including cancer. Did you hear that point where he said that? You're less likely to get cancer if you are sleeping less than 8 hours a night, which sleep is different than being in bed, right? If you are sleeping less than 8 hours a night, you're 2 times as likely to get cancer. Okay, hopefully that has your attention now. These things that I just checked out, and this will be available for a long time on the internet, check back into it so that you can dig in. I got to tell you this story. You got to meet Erica. She was a young woman who came into me, and I hadn't heard a story like this. She was 16 years old. It would take her 4 to 5 hours to fall asleep. And I was like, 4 to 5 hours? That's horrible. How long has this been happening? She said, well, for as long as I can remember. I was like, wait a minute, as long as you can remember? You're 16 years old? You mean like when you were a little child and stuff like that? And she very honestly looked me in the eye and said, yeah, as long as I can remember. We did a lot of looking in that consultation for what she had been working on to improve her sleep, and she had tried everything. We did our examination, and it revealed that she was subluxated. Significantly, I mean, all C1 of these this top vertebra, all C1 subluxations are significant, but this one was an eye-opener for me even. And she had misalignment in the lower cervical spine as well, C7, C6, C5, and C4. All of that was misaligned. We started care, and in 2 days, it took her 2.5 hours to get to sleep. Not bad. 3 days later, She fell asleep while she was reading in bed. And she comes in kind of matter of fact, and hey, how'd sleep go last night? Oh yeah, I fell asleep while I was reading. Oh, how long in? She's like, yeah, I don't know, not very long. I'm like, really? Yeah, she was good. I'm like, when has that happened before? Never. It's like, okay, well, we're certainly onto something. After 3 days, she has had 0 days of difficulty falling asleep afterwards. I bring this out because there are a lot of strategies that people like to employ. Let's do this, let's do that, let's supplement with this. Oh, maybe let's take sleep medication, which, by the way, Dr. Walker is not a fan of sleep medication because it's not actually improving sleep. But anyway, people try all sorts of things, but oftentimes what they don't think of doing is checking in with a chiropractor to see how that spine and the nervous system are functioning. So this was Erica's thing for 16 years, which is very likely from a birth trauma issue. She had had poor sleep, and then boom, taken care of. Now, I always wonder what would have happened to Erica if she wouldn't have been adjusted. What would have happened if she would have kept having these sleep issues? And from all the things I read and why we sleep and all of the serious physiologic health issues that show up, I am certainly glad we don't know the answer to what would have happened if she didn't get checked. So make sure that having that chiropractor on your team is one of the things that you do to improve your sleep, to improve your performance, because the goal, of course, is more people living their full lives to their full abilities so that we can all deliver our talents to the world in our best way possible, and that's going to rise everything in our society. Because waiting on it is not a good strategy. In fact, procrastination is the thief of sleep. Procrastination is the thief of health. Procrastination, just put it on your forearm, procrastination is the thief of fill in the blank, period. If this has been an issue, take action. Go back through this, figure out what it is that you're going to take action on, whether it's tonight doing a digital sunset, whether it's tomorrow doing your AM bookend, whether you're going to make sure your room is a little darker, you're putting your phone in airplane mode. There were a lot of tips in here about what you can start doing. So start doing something. Choose one thing, 2 things, 3 things, and make sure that one of those is getting an appointment with a chiropractor. I'm Dr. Chris Grier, Bright Futures Chiropractic. I certainly hope you enjoy your day, and I really hope you start enjoying your sleep even better. Signing off.
Thank you, Dr. Grier, and thank you all for attending today. Please be sure to subscribe to the Natural Grocers channel, and please keep your eye out for upcoming events in the next few weeks. Thank you again, and good night.